There we go.
Yes, here we go.
Let me
Let
pull
you
up the link.
pull up the link. Is it like Zelda's link? Is it the missing link? Zelda's link.
Yes, it is. Let me just. You know what? I gotta do this on my phone so I can send it out easier. What is up, everybody? How are you all doing?
You all. Right now it's us. Dan was clearly prepared.
Yeah, I'm
Very much ready.
I gotta pull this up on my phone so I can text out the link. But we're gonna talk about House of Dragon and maybe a little bit on Rings of Power, even though I haven't watched episodes 3 and 4. Watched a lot of people talk a lot of shit about episodes 3 and 4, which was hilarious, but I have not actually watched it.
I watched episode 3. I haven't seen episode 4. But I can understand why people are talking smack. Seems earned as far as I'm concerned.
All right. And bam.
Bam.
All right, so what let's see, we watched the first 2 episodes and we talked about those on one of our podcast episodes. What was your initial kind of thoughts with 3 and 4?
I didn't watch 4. I did watch 3.
No, House of Dragon.
Oh. It was pretty badass. It was really good. Let me try to think. Third episode. Wait, so it's third episode. Third episode ends with the crab guy getting killed, or was that 2?
That's the third, yeah. Third episode ends. Third episode was kind of started off with them fighting on the stepstones, and then they went for the hunt for the stag, and it was a big Patty episode.
Yeah,
King
it's
Viserys
pretty
was
badass.
phenomenal in it, and he was talking about going. He was conflicted on people were pressuring him to make Aegon, his firstborn son, be the heir. Now that he has a firstborn son that's 2 years old, it was his second birthday is why they were out on the hunt, and he's conflicted because he's named Rhaenyra as his heir, and so there's that conflict with him, the pressure that he's facing from different members of the society and in the court, and then also Rhaenyra dealing with her kind of jealousy and her different emotions towards feeling like she's being neglected now that there is a son that she's going to be passed over. She's thinking it's going to be inevitable. So
It seems like
that was a lot of the conflict.
it seems like there's heavy assumptions from everyone, and Viserys is obviously feeling it. Rhaenyra feels that way. She thinks it's coming. It was fucking great because there was like a really great character arc for all the main characters. The way I saw it, it's very much Rhaenyra kind of going up and down in a big way, and then getting reassurance by the end. Viserys getting hammered because he's having to deal with all this shit. He was the actor that plays Viserys was phenomenal in that episode. I thought. Daemon basically doesn't say a word, but has a massive trajectory in his character in terms of where he's going to be moving forward because he does some crazy, miraculous shit. And Hightower, that's her name, right?
Yeah, Alicent.
She's that it was really interesting to have her father tell her like to do one thing, give her guidance. She completely does basically the opposite, And
she's interesting because she's obviously torn at this point. I don't think she gives a shit. She's not the character is not written in a way where she's like real power hungry. This
She
is
doesn't seem
more of
political.
her.
Yeah.
She's just doing what she's told.
Well, she doesn't seem politically motivated, and she just if I don't know if she's
It's more of like a
necessarily
duty thing. Like this
well,
is her
yeah, but
obligation to kind of do what her dad tells her, and then now that she's in this position as queen, she's got to do her duty as a queen. But she doesn't seem to have her own machinations. Like she's not. She doesn't seem like politically calculating and
yeah.
trying to maneuver people or anything
No.
along those lines.
She didn't seem to be trying to wield power, but like she back. So when goddamn Rhaenyra comes in, and all the ladies are around and everything, Hightower backs her, right? She like says a couple things like favoring Rhaenyra, where it's like that was the best decision. She's the most ideal leader as compared to like Daemon. I think that was basically what was being dialogued when they were talking there, but. I thought it was amazing in terms of the overall, like the episode 3 itself. There's a lot of like mythology and symbolism with the stag. I mean, it's pretty on the nose, but whatever, man, it's a show. So I thought it was great, and her coming back with like the blood all over her, all that shit.
Yeah, the episode 3 I thought was the best episode that
So
of the season. It was phenomenal. It was written so well. Like the progression for Viserys, like from him dealing with the pressure, like it starts off, he's kind of having the happy, dad, newborn kid, or not newborn, but 2-year-old kid, kind of proud dad moment, and then Rhaenyra is not there, and you can and he's got the guy in his ear about Daemon, and so you get that where he just wants to kind of chill out and like have a birthday party. Like he's like, man, I just want to relax.
One of the
and
things
there is so much pressure on him.
I really like what they chose to do with him, because you see him losing his fingers and with these open sores and shit. Like we know he's weak. They keep telling us that. But they cast so well because he kind of looks a bit weakish.
Yeah.
But then Lannister comes in, starts talking, not really talking shit, but he can choose to take it as shit talking, because like, well, so you're making these assumptions. Who said I'm choosing Aegon? Well, and then he tries to dance back, and he's up his ass. Like he jumps down his throat. I loved it. Especially for the character, it was super cool.
Yeah, because I mean, it shows like the kingly side of him, the commanding side of him, the guy where you could see this guy being a king and being a leader that people would fear. Like this guy thought, is coming up and thinking it's just going to be one way, and he's just going to kind of try to maneuver him and be,
The gift and all that.
yeah, and just kind of play him a little bit, and he thinks he's going to be that kind of guy and have that kind of relationship. And Viserys completely checks him. It's like, no, it's not going the way you think. He's like, I've already made my decision. Who told you I was changing it? And then he really put that guy on his heels.
Because he doubled down and he's like, it's treason, right? So tell me the names and shit.
Yeah. Yeah. He put him on his heels. That was great. And then it's kind of similar to when he was dealing with Daemon in the first episode, when he told him get out of King's Landing to begin with, in the King's room, after Daemon had said the king for a day, or the heir for the day for his kid that died. So like you've seen that he's got some bite to him, but his typical mode, like where he would like to be, you can see he just would like to have a family that gets along, peace in the realm. He's just trying to, he's coming after Jaehaerys, who had a more than 50-year reign of peace after some chaotic shit before Jaehaerys, like Maegor the Cruel before that, and so like there was a lot of chaos in the realm with before Jaehaerys, and then Jaehaerys had this long reign, and a lot of traumatic stuff happens to Jaehaerys as well. Like most of his kids die. And, I mean, he had a ton of kids. He had like 11, 12 kids, but most of them die before he does. Wow. And so, the firstborn son dies. Then there's, the way the kind of the structure of things started to happen is once his firstborn son died, then it became, well, who would be next in line? Should it go to the next kid in line, which was a girl, or should it go to his firstborn son?
Mm-hmm.
Should it go pass through him? He ends up deciding that it's going to go to his secondborn son. And so they didn't have like a clear line of succession set up in Jaehaerys era. And then when that guy died under, it's not in the book, it's not really told as like something suspicious happened. They don't expressly say that, but when you hear the story, like he was fine and he goes out on a hunt and then, starts having bad stomach problems and he's dead 5 days later. And it's like, did someone poison him? And they brought that up in episode 4 when he starts grilling him. He's like, hey, it's pretty convenient that, Balin goes out in or whatever that son's name was. I can't remember. I think it was Balin.
That's right. They did talk about it.
But he's like, he went out in the woods and then 5 days later he's dead. And then you are now hand of the king. You took his place, and you were, you're a second son. You didn't have any kind of position, but now all of a sudden you got a great position. Yeah, to Otto Hightower, he's telling that too. So that's what he's referring to.
That was really interesting too, because it kind of felt to me like Viserys is trying to find a reason to boot him, like, and not necessarily it was necessarily legitimate, but it's like, this is what I could say if I was going to do the job.
I took it more not necessarily that way. I took it more like he's not. These are doubts that he's had. These are reasonable suspicion that you would have of the guy, but he's been pushing those down because he's just like, he's my hand of the king. He's he was the hand of the king before I was king. He's taught me how to be king.
He's been a good advisor.
Yeah, and so like I think these are probably nagging feelings like, does this guy really have my best interests at heart? And then once he told him the shit about Rhaenyra and Daemon, and then she pushes him on it. Now he's sitting there having to think about this stuff, and now he's got to get rid of them. And then I think it's just like, all right, now I'm going to bring up all these nagging feelings that I've had, and it can partly be to justify what he's doing, but also I think these are legitimate concern because Otto is, manipulating him.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
he is, and so Viserys is right, and it's just now he's finally allowing himself to admit what's obvious. And so I think it's good in that it shows like the conflict with Viserys, but it also shows that he's not stupid. He knows what's going on. And it even ends, that episode 4 even ends with him after, Rhaenyra denies all the shit about sex. He sends her the moon teeth. It's like, yeah, I know what the fuck happened.
It's pretty interesting too with Viserys because we get some stuff early on where it's like he takes a lot of other people's advice or he asks for it, which almost makes him feel indecisive. But then he's not really indecisive. Like he makes decisions pretty swiftly,
Yeah.
and he's not really doesn't seem too afraid to. He's a reluctant leader, but aren't they all? I mean, you would. That's kind of what you would hope for in a leader. You don't want some guy that's just brash as shit, thinks he knows everything, looks for guidance from others, and then makes his own decision. And he consistently makes his own decision. It's really, I see a lot of parallels with, it's kind of on another tip, but between Rhaenyra and Daemon in the sense that when Daemon's alone, or maybe that's not the best example, but when Rhaenyra, it seems like every episode she's in the fucking doldrums, and then she gets a gift. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, no, you are going to be my heir. First, it's like, he wants a son, that's it. He doesn't need me. And it's like, names her heir. It's like, oh shit, I'm the heir. And then, the next episode, it's basically like, well, no one gives a shit about, no one's here for me. That line was pretty telling, right?
Yeah.
And then he reassures her after everybody else is thinking basically the same thing. And the audience gets to see the white stag choose her. Fucking huge, right?
Yeah.
She gets to come back after slaughtering the shit out of a pig and her fear and fucking anger, and then all that blood on her makes her look. See, and that's a good example. If you compare Rings of Power to House of Dragon, why not? They're both running at the same time. House of Dragon is doing a good job of making a character look kind of badass, while Rings of Power is really trying hard to make a character look badass. That's not looking badass.
Try to find a character that has any kind of arc like Viserys has in episode 3. There's in all the episodes, there is no arc even remotely like his in one single episode. And he's had arcs in each episode. Like he has his own character arcs,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
that one's
Each one
just a
does.
phenomenal one because you see that he's his big concerns, like his motivations, like and they're not telling you. It's not like he's sitting there going, I'm coming after Jaehaerys who had 50 years of peace. I'm trying to maintain peace. I'm trying to keep everybody. You're not told these things explicitly. It's shown to you.
Yeah,
They're
yeah, yeah.
showing you these
Well, and
things.
there's subtle language. There's subtle hints of like the king that kept the peace. I mean, we hear
Yeah.
it like in a couple episodes. One thing that's kind of subtle, maybe not so subtle, but I think it's fucking great. The whole thing with the stag, we know, we hear a couple times that Viserys is like big in mythology. Like he believes, or at least he enjoys the stories, and he enjoys like the symbolism. So for him, it actually matters whether or not he can kill the white stag. Although he seems very torn because if the white stag chooses him, then maybe he made a mistake with choosing Rhaenyra, right? But
Yeah.
then he also does kind of want it to be true because, well, why wouldn't you want it to be true? He's chosen by the gods. Then he's not. He's kind of too wasted to offer him one shot, and he kind of needs somebody to help him, tell him how to do it. All that type of shit makes him look somewhat a little bit weak.
But he's not dumb. He knows that like this is a conflict that is not going to just go away.
Yeah.
There is gonna be a significant battle for power, and so he's got that in the back of his mind. Is like, when I'm gone, how do I make sure that the transition is peaceful and that it doesn't, chaos?
Well, it also
doesn't
matters
erupt?
now. It also matters now, and we see that in the fourth episode when they have the theater show in the square,
Yeah.
where they're fucking mocking the whole situation, which it begs to be mocked because this is the type of thing that you would be hoisting fun at. It's the inner conflict that he's dealing with, and that we get to see him work out with a hangover, and he's got to kill this fucking thing, and he's got to keep everybody's Lannister hands him the thing. He's got to still have just all that type of shit that he's still got to like deal with. There's so much inner turmoil within the character in itself, and then all the shit he's dealing with, and then we're involved. We're watching.
And part of the stress would be is it's not just as simple as I name Rhaenyra as my heir, so Rhaenyra's going to be the heir. And there's that sets up issues with the entire kingdom, because then what about the firstborn daughters of all the realm, of all the kings, of all the households? Like, does a firstborn Lannister daughter should she be the rightful heir to Casterly Rock? What about
Suddenly that
and
creates
all the other castles?
That creates a big problem for every dad throughout the kingdom.
And all the
of every
sons
house.
and they're all like, hey, what the fuck are you doing, man?
Yeah.
Like, we got a pretty sweet gig going on here, and you're kind of fucking rocking the boat.
Yeah, I mean, shit, man. Yeah, and then everything's under a microscope at that point too. Everything they do, and that's what the fourth episode is very much about.
Yeah.
Like in terms of what Daemon and Rhaenyra open themselves up to, and she kind of just follows along, but she allows it to happen. And yeah, man, that's a big problem.
But that's why that episode 3 is so great, because you get all that in just kind of the subtlety of through his acting. He demonstrates the pressure, and you can just piece together why there's so much pressure. You can just piece it together, but you see that like his main desire is like he's like in that thing, like, hey, we're all out as a family, we're all going out on this to celebrate this birthday and go on this hunt, and it's gonna have a good time. And they're all looking at him like, are you stupid? Like, what are you talking about? Like, there's chaos right now, and he wants to kind of ignore it, but he's also, as he's sitting there, he's getting drunk and he's getting pissed at people, not
He's yelling at Rhaenyra in public.
they're having a fight in public, and he's getting more and more drunk. And then you see just the inner turmoil in him, and even his questioning: did I make the right choice? Yeah. Should I make Aegon the heir? And so he does a phenomenal job of going through that transition of. You see him just trying to have a good time, and then just getting more and fed up with everything that's going on, and getting drunker, and the inner turmoil. Then when he goes to kill the stag, just like you like, they don't tell you anything. why there's this hesitation, but you see this hesitation, and you can interpret it so many ways. It's very, very similar to the way Rothfuss writes, in that you can just watch the scene develop, and you can interpret it all these different ways, and they're not telling you a right way or a wrong way to do it. And so, is it because he's sick? Is it because he doesn't want to kill the animal? Like, is it because it's a brown stag, and that doesn't settle things for him? So, like, if it was a white stag, would he have felt differently because it could have helped solidify the issue? But it's a brown one, so it doesn't. And
but there's a catch-22 there, because if it is a white stag, then doesn't that set Rhaenyra back?
yeah,
Right?
but maybe it solidifies the issue with him, and it's like, I did make the wrong decision. This doesn't tell him that.
Yeah.
So he's not getting any answers from the gods.
It's again, like, there's so many arcs. Like, Rhaenyra also has a great arc in the fact that I was saying, she keeps losing then winning. He tells her, marry whoever you want.
Yeah.
Like, but you're gonna marry.
Yeah.
So, but marry, but he gives her that, and that's huge. Like, that doesn't happen in their fucking world. But what's also, but she comes back at him like, if you were doing these things, because he talks about Lannister and how that strengthens their house. If you were trying to strengthen our house, then you wouldn't have married Hightower.
Yeah. Yeah, she threw it back in his
right
face.
back at him. Yeah. And then that gets settled on the fourth one, where it's like, all right, choice is no more. You fucked up. This is what you're gonna do, and you're gonna join up the whatever house, the guy that rides the dragon.
I also like how they showed he's missing two fingers without saying anything about it. And like I like those. It's those little things where they trust the audience. It gives you an opportunity to go back and rewatch it and discover new things. It gives you reasons to rewatch it, which is important for a TV show like this. You want people to rewatch it, not just watch it once. But they give all these kind of like subtle clues to things where you can kind of figure things out on your own. So they trust the audience, not beating you over the head. And it's not like they're going and they tell you who Viserys is. They show you who he is, and that's massively important if you want to have a good TV show. You have to trust your audience. Otherwise, it's like you're treating your audience like they're little kids, and you take away all the subtlety, and it becomes boring and monotonous, because it's just people telling you what you're supposed to feel or what you're supposed to think, and it's like, who wants to watch a show?
And
like that?
it's also a lot less open to interpretation, which doesn't.
It kills conversation.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, there is no conversation to be had, because you're just basically like, this is what happened, and lay it out. And, okay, so that's what happened. There's no there's no reading into it. There's a lot of that. What the symbolism means throughout every one of these episodes.
Another good example is in episode 4, when Daemon takes her down to the brothel, and he gets her all revved up and starts
He pulls her hat off.
Yeah,
which is huge.
And so it's like, when you're interpreting that, it's like, what is his motivation? And it's like, is this just to throw sand in his brother's face, like is kind of a petulant move, or was he trying to sully Rhaenyra in the eyes of the court, where she would be in a position where it was like forced, where she would have to marry him, where he's trying to maneuver Viserys into a corner where he would get what he wants.
That's what he calls for.
Yeah, but you can interpret it in multiple different ways. You don't know exactly what his thinking is. Could have been just like a petulant move, and then because you could read that, and like when he brings her down there, and like maybe he intended to sleep with her, and then as he's in the midst of it, he's like, man, I can't do this. I can't do this to her. And then so he backs out. Or it was, I already got what I want, and now I'm going to dip out. I already did. But there's some conflict with him, and you don't know exactly what's going on in his head.
He's an agent of chaos, man. And I love, like, when it's talked about, when him and Viserys are there. I don't know, they're outside. There's a big banquet there, but nobody's there but them. And she's like, what are you doing here? He's like, sometimes I miss home. She's like, no, you don't. Yeah. Like, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
That's not you at all. But he's just kind of, it seems like he's playing a part. That really stood out in a huge way after the episode was over, because you're asking I'm left asking the same questions. Like, yeah, what is he doing there? And it almost feels like, oh, so everything's kind of working out here. But it's like, that's not going to happen, clearly,
Yeah.
because him being there, now he's shunned again, go back to the Erie, get the fuck out of here. I never want to see you again, which he's done before, you know? So, like, the relationship is definitely getting tested. And Damon seems to be definitely that agent of chaos. And it's hard to tell if it's intentional or if he's just that dude that has to make mistakes, has to test the boundary, has to burn down his own thing that he puts together. I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know yet. He's fucking amazingly interesting character to throw in the mix for sure.
they're all really good. I mean, there's so many good characters. Otto's really good. Viserys is really good. Rhaenyra's good. Alicent's good. Damon's obviously
I
really,
like
really
I even
good.
like the dude that he's been in. I think every single episode. He's on the council, and he Viserys thought, "Oh, I'm going to marry your son." Is
Oh
that
yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah. The Breakbones.
Yeah. He always comes with a logical argument for what he's presenting, and it actually makes sense, but it's not what you expect at the same time.
He's the dude that's like kind of runs Harrenhal. They own Harrenhal. I'm drawing a blank of their name, the Strongs or something like that. But I'm drawing a blank. I think it's like Harry Strong or something like that. I can't remember. But yeah, there are significant players in the story. I'm just drawing a blank on their names, but there's significant players in the story, and so and the guard that stops her when she's running away from Damon, like in the guard that stops her, it says something to her. That's Breakbones.
Oh yeah. I heard it in some. I think maybe Damon said something.
They've done a good job with him. It was like they kind of showed him like when she was walking by, kind of like smirking at her, and then you get this second scene with him where they've just kind of introduced him without they're not ready to tell any part of his story yet, but they've just kind of slowly introduced him without wasting time. Like they're not overdoing it. They needed to introduce him, but they don't have the time to spend on like bringing him to life yet. So they're
They've
just kind of slowly giving you little tastes of him, and then he'll become a bigger part of the story.
they've done that with the guy that she's promised to now. As
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
I don't remember his
yeah.
name.
Valerian's kids, Laney's and Lane. I can't remember their names, man. There's too many names, but
Yeah.
yeah. And I've read
they have white
read these
dreads.
stories like
They have white
five
dreadlocks,
times.
and he's a dragon rider, and he's
Yeah.
a dragon rider in the second episode. And so that's another also interesting thing. At the beginning of episode 3, it's like this battle's going on, and it's not going well. That's 3, right? Or is that 2?
Yeah, that's 3.
Yeah, where it's like this is not going well at all. They're all fucking screaming at each other and shit. Damon flips out on the messenger, which is like you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, that whole scene is so good. Like he
Yeah.
goes, it's like about like 5-6 minutes with no dialogue,
Pretty much,
and it's just him. Like he gets this message from the guy, reads it, just wallops
Starts
the
wailing
shit out
on
of
him
him,
with his
and
helmet.
just smokes him, and just gets in a boat and rows across, and then just goes. Some unrealistic aspects to it where he's just like running with
One guy.
arrows flying at him, and he's just one man in an army.
Yeah, which is insane. But it's also pretty badass because the whole problem
Yes.
is we can't get them out of their caves. What are we going to do? Like, our firepower means nothing if they're just hiding in these caves. Who's going to do it? Damon will do it. And then Damon fucking gets into a rage and fucking does it without
Yeah.
anybody asking.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be some unrealistic elements if you want to have like an exciting
So
show.
that's also
But-
interesting in terms of his his character. He gets a note saying, "Brother, I'm going to help you." After nothing for 2 years, right? And he flips the fuck out,
Yeah.
basically kills the messenger damn near, and then goes off and on a suicide mission. Like, fuck you, no one will help me.
Yeah.
I'll die before that happens.
Yeah.
Which, man, that's an intense dude.
Yeah, he's really thin because after the route begins when everybody else shows up after him, and he just walks into that cave and it's in the
Rips the
book
dude
that
in
he
half.
slays that guy in single combat. So that's consistent with the book. They don't show it, but I thought the way they did it was cool, in that he comes out with just his torso and just like dragging it behind him. And then just like tosses down, just covered in blood. Like that's one of the cool things with the Valerian hair and stuff like that is it's a it's a visceral look when you see them covered in blood with
Yeah,
that
yeah,
hair.
yeah.
It really stands out.
Definitely makes it pop.
Yeah.
Makes it really stand out. Yeah, that's the end of the episode. It's just
Yeah.
like him covered in blood, looking like
And it was
fucking.
and it was cool too how they did that with Rhaenyra, and then they did it with him in the same episode. You saw the same thing. Both of them, like he comes in with that, walking out with the corpse, and then
Yeah,
she
yeah.
comes walking in with the fucking pour. And so
Yeah,
there's
well,
definitely
I
some
guess
symbolism between those two.
I guess it's also, man, that's probably what I was talking about in terms of how they parallel. But it also seems like in just about every episode they have these huge ups and downs, and I mean that happens virtually with all of the main characters, for the most part, especially all the Targaryen main characters, which that's makes a good show, right? High
Yeah.
tension. But yeah, like I mean, he comes out of this like he's Billy Badass now. He's the dude. He's the fucking warrior that takes down a fucking army that, you know, 2 years of fighting they weren't able to do much with. It sounds like, and they were losing. That's the other thing. They were literally losing.
Yeah, it was. I mean, yeah, it was phenomenal. It was extremely entertaining into the episode. Like you watch episode 3, and when it ends, you come out of it and you feel jacked up. You're like, man, this show is bananas. It's so good.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting though too. So in the second episode, Rhaenyra got some real. You would think got some real. What's the word? Some juice. I don't know, by negotiating. The end of what Damon was doing with no fighting.
Yeah.
That's pretty huge. Gets the egg back, and basically, that was a huge move, bringing her dragon, that whole thing.
That was the end of episode 2.
That was
Yeah.
the end of 2. By 3, it's like she's been set back over these 2 years, where everybody, like, at least we get the feeling like she's just left in the dark,
Yeah.
and she has that feeling where it's like whatever she did, whatever she had gained, is basically lost.
And she's not completely wrong because Viserys admits that he's waffling on his decision to Alicent when he's drunk. He's sitting there talking to her like, "Did I make a mistake?" And so she's obviously feeling that. And so, but then it was nice, like the way he ties that up when he's like, "There's no way, no matter what, I'm not backing out of you being the heir." It's like that decision is final. You don't have to worry about that, and it helps. But she's not dumb. She knows that the rest of the kingdom is not down with it. That there is going to be a power struggle. Like the writing is on the wall that there's going to be major problems. If Viserys is gone, there is major problems between who succeeds him.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's going to be what this would typically mean is arms race.
Yeah,
up to the end.
Political maneuvering, everybody kind of getting their chess pieces in order, and you're seeing that. You're starting to see that kind of play out as sides are starting to build up.
Well, and that's what the marriage is about. That's a huge part of what the marriage is about.
Yeah, and that's a huge marriage for her. Huge, because that aligning herself with Corlys Valerian's family, that's the wealthiest family in Westeros.
So they're the wealthiest. They have the wealthiest navy, right? So the chick that she's telling eat cake, or here you sit eating cake. Who's her family?
I can't remember which family. She was just another
But
one of the Lord.
I thought there were.
A somewhat major family, but I don't know that it was like how significant. I can't remember.
It seemed like a politically relevant conversation, as if there was some sway there. Because every time they show any character, none of them are throwaways.
No.
They all have some sort of power to wield, right? That's why they're in the fucking room.
Yeah, I don't. She's not like a Queen of Thorns type of character or anything like that.
I didn't get that
but
impression.
She's not that prominent. I don't know. It was just. I think it wasn't so much the character. It was just more of
The argument.
what they were talking about was the importance rather than who she was.
Well, yeah, and so I guess because the subject of marriage comes up, then it's like, okay, so there's Lannister, There's Breakbone's family. I don't, who's got the Navy? That's the Valerians, right? So yeah, I mean, I
Corlys
guess
is extremely powerful. The Lannisters are extremely powerful. The not the I think the High Gardens are gone, but the Tyrells and I can't remember if the whoever like the over in that group, the Tyrells, that area, and then
mhm.
you also have Storm's End. The Baratheons are very powerful.
Yeah.
You have
Oh
the
yeah,
Starks, the
yeah.
North. I mean, there's
The
tons of
storms
very
in
powerful
the
families.
Baratheon gets murked by that kid after he talks all that shit,
Oh
right?
yeah, no, that wasn't a Baratheon. That was the two families, the Blackwoods and the it's similar to Baratheons, but Brackens.
Oh, I thought he had a. Didn't he have a? I thought he
That
had a
kid
deer.
is
I thought he had a deer as his sigil.
that kid is plays a. They're more like the Riverlands. They're like two families. Like the Brackens are men of the old men, like
Yeah.
the North. But
Well,
the
he makes that claim. It's like we've been around since the beginning of man.
Yeah.
Type situation, and then they all make fun of him.
yeah
And he fucking
yeah, and
works it, dude.
he that guy ends up there. I can't say a whole lot, but he plays a role, and his family plays a role in the story.
That was pretty cool. I mean, that was
like I heard someone talking about it, and they're like, "Oh, I think that's gonna be so and so," and it was like, it's like close, same family. It's like, but that's not who he is specifically, but it will be the same family that you're thinking of.
that was one moment that definitely got me to literally voice out loud, like, "Oh shit!" Because
Yeah, it was great. Like he's sitting there, looks outmatched as
Yeah,
shit, and then the
yeah,
next thing you
entirely.
see is like he's just rammed a sword through
Yeah.
the dude.
Yeah, man, that was pretty cool. But yeah, the whole suitor thing is definitely she's making problems.
Yeah, and where she was holding court, that was at Storm's End.
Ah, okay.
That was the Baratheon's spot. So the guy that it was advising her, that was a Baratheon. I believe. I'd have to. I've only watched that episode once, but I'm fairly certain
Yeah.
that was a Baratheon. I don't know who else, why he would be sitting next to her at Storm's End if he's not a Baratheon. But yeah, so there's a lot of prominent families. The story encompasses Westeros. It's not going to just be King's Landing.
Yeah, I was definitely one of those also that as I'm watching, I'm like, I'm definitely looking forward to watching this again. I didn't, or at least I haven't yet. I'll watch it tomorrow.
No, I want to like once the season's over, I want to kind of do episodes where we go through each episode on a rewatch and go through it in scene to scene and go through it in detail.
I mean, as far like it's that type of quality as far as I've been able to see. I mean, just from what we're talking about here, just off of memory, because I mean, I haven't thought really any of this out.
No.
I mean, I watched the episode. They do play over in my head, just randomly, but especially within the next 12 hours or something like that. But thinking back and like trying to piece together all the things that happen and then what those mean and how those connect. Obviously, it's great narrative. The writing's on point. Directing is everything. Everything.
There's
very,
no
very
holes.
well
There's
done.
nothing I'm watching where I'm like, man, this is not good. This is an area that is weak. I don't see any weaknesses. It's just, some areas, some of the performances are phenomenal and others are good, and but I don't see any weaknesses. Sometimes there's like episode 2, I was like, some of the dialogue I thought could have been better, but I didn't think any of it was bad, and so. Wasn't that was my least favorite episode, but it wasn't a bad episode by any stretch, and so it's all been good. The big question is going to be what happens when they do the big age jump and you get some new actors. Are those actors going to be as good?
Yeah,
and
because we're all in. I'm all in on the cast thus far.
Yeah.
It's been and they've been real judicious. I mean, a 2-year gap's not a lot. The first was 6 months, something like that.
Yeah.
And 2 years. And they do a good job of kind of showing that things have changed in some pretty good ways. Plus, they don't have to hit you over the head with it.
Yeah.
They just subtly throw it in. I mean, it's second name day. Okay, well, he was just born.
Yeah.
Nothing difficult to piece together. And then also, so Hightower and Rhaenyra kind of got close again, right? They're like getting friendly again, being nice again. Only took 2 years to, to bury that hatchet, apparently.
Yeah. Well, that would be pretty freaking
Yeah,
weird
yeah,
if
yeah,
like
yeah,
your
yeah.
best friend married your dad. You'd be like, what the fuck?
I didn't know this was
But
going
I
on.
mean, Allison would have a good excuse. Like, what am I supposed to do here?
Yeah, yeah,
Like, I don't have any choice in this matter.
yeah.
Like, what am I gonna say? No.
Well, I mean, Rhaenyra should understand she's a member of the royal family, but there are also young girls. I mean, just young people.
And just because you know why doesn't
mean
mean that it's not fucking weird.
Yeah, doesn't mean you're not emotionally.
And it's she didn't give her a heads up or anything, so she's felt ambushed. So I would get it, and not only that, then she has a son who is now a threat
a direct threat. Yeah.
to her being the heir. So yeah, there's a lot of complexity to the relationship, and almost everything in the show is just like it's just building. It's building more and more tension and more conflict. It's not. That's what Game of Thrones does. Is it doesn't settle conflict. It just continues to build conflict and problems and put characters through the ringer. And this show will be no different. Characters are gonna go through some messed up shit throughout the seasons.
When they were in the brothel, my wife was just like, "No, don't, no, they can't do this." And they were going for it.
Yeah, and especially with him being like so much older than her and her uncle.
Yeah, man. Jeez.
It's like, ooh, man. That's one of the things that makes Game of Thrones so good is you can't shy away from these kind of things. You have to just go for it because that's what the story is. That's the only way to do the story justice is to just tell the messed up story.
Well, that's
he told.
That's what they did in the second episode with Viserys walking with this little kid.
Yeah,
where it's like, oh man, and that was one of my.
And that's his. What I mean, he is.
Like
what's her face is like his cousin, I think, or is that his sister? I can't remember how they're related. It's either his cousin. They're related though.
I think that's his sister. So that's his niece, I believe.
It's either his niece or his second cousin. Regardless,
it's close. It's close.
It is
and that's
messed up enough to where it'd be like. Ugh.
Well, what was great about
and
that?
She's like 12.
What I really liked about it is they put us in that position where he has to have a conversation with her, and then you're in that position of like, oh shit, yeah, you'd have to live with this person. It's not just it's an arrangement, but I mean, so
and
I like that they put us in that position where we have to be part of it and witness it, and yeah, it's super fucking awkward and weird, but that's what the story is. That's why, like, when my wife yelled out, I'm like, this was what they did. We fucking know that.
Yeah.
Remember Jaime and fucking Cersei? Like, yeah, everybody was like all panties in a bunch about it and everything, and yeah, of course, but that's what they or what they kept saying is this is what the Targaryens did. They're not Targaryens, but
Yeah, and it's what makes that show good, though. I mean, the fact that they'll push through, they'll do messed up things, they don't shy away from violence, they don't shy away from the political struggles. Like the
other thing is the violence, like the Red Wedding, for example. The violence isn't just gratuitous.
No,
it's impactful for a reason. When they do it, it's for a reason. It's not just because you've seen that in plenty of fucking shows.
Yeah, it's not really all shock value. I mean, there is some aspect to that. There is some aspect to the shock value, but it's also when you're in that world, you get the feel that it is a grim, dark, brutal place, and that's part of it, and that's part of the reason you get that feeling, and it builds weight to when they're having these political back and forths. It adds weight to those because you know what the consequences are. They don't just like, oh, we lost. Like, I guess I'll go home now. No, you're gonna get murdered.
That is one of the things about like when they have all the gallantry in the games.
Yeah.
People fucking die, man.
Yeah.
Like, and when those two guys are your I mean, it's true today. Your reputation means a lot. It means everything in certain circles. Back then, it was absolutely everything, right?
Yeah.
So if your reputation is everything, and this guy's shitting on you in public, in the royal court, in front of everyone that matters, pull out your sword and see how you're going to do. One of you is going to die, basically, is the most likely scenario. And what's his face looks like a badass now because he took him out. But those things, as it can just be looked at as like, oh, this is crazy violent. That's also how the world was. I mean, you go back to, I know this is a story, but go back to medieval times period. It was fucking brutal. Go back 200 years, it was brutal, man.
Yeah.
There's no penicillin, man.
Yeah.
Like
and that's
indoor plumbing.
Yeah, again, like the brutal
Refrigeration?
aspects add weight to all the dialogue because there's that axe hanging over everybody's head, and it's a brutal end if you lose, and so that
It's the end. It can be the end of your house.
that adds that adds a lot of weight to what they're dealing with. But the I also in that episode 4. I like just that the directing, and that brothel scene. It's good. It builds. It's a kind of a dark. You get in the feeling that of Rhaenyra in that scene. Like you're definitely kind of like she's sitting there experiencing this craziness for the first time. It's kind of an eyed wide shut type of scene, but like the just kind of the visceral reaction to it, and then the slow build up, and like he starts seducing her through it and everything, and getting her all revved up. But then also that she doesn't just when he goes after her and he's like telling her we can do whatever the fuck we want. She goes and takes that, and then takes that back with her, and then she's like, yeah, we can. And then she goes and takes Cole after that, and that was all the buildup of that scene, and him taking her out there, and him having an influence on her, and that environment had an influence on her, and then that's she ends up going and doing what she did.
She's a super cool character, man. She seems to have a similar streak in her to Damon in that she does feel like I'll do what I want, like I'm my own person type of situation. But then also she is intelligent. She kind of knows how the world works to some degree. But then also she is also young. But yeah, you could see it pretty clearly. Like she's just like fuck it.
And she's complex too, because she is petulant. She makes stupid decisions. She's flawed, big time flawed. Like when she just runs off in the in the hunt, and then doing that with Cole and with Damon. Like she's
Not thinking of any
extremely reckless with
Yeah.
her position. I mean, just extremely reckless, making stupid choices. They're not smart choices, but it adds complexity to her character because there's plenty of positive and negative qualities to her. But then also people call her on her bullshit when she's sitting there like, "Whoa, it's me. I got it so rough." They're like that. Like Cole at one point, he's like, "Dude." He's like, you have so much power that you changed my entire life with one word.
Yeah.
And and then like when she's talking to Allison about like hey, I gotta marry someone, and Allison's like, dude, people would kill to have as many choices as you have. Like people would kill for your problems.
Yeah.
And it's like, so people aren't just, they're not just allowing her or even just pushing this narrative of, oh, the struggle, I got it so rough, because they could easily do that. They could easily lean into her. It's just unfair, and there's nothing. But it's way more complex than that. It's way like Viserys has his own problems. You could see the struggle that he has. Life's not fucking fair for any of them. Damon's got his problems. Allison's got her problems. Everybody's got their own problems, and they're all dealing with them. And so it's like when someone's sitting there doing that "woe is me" shit, it's like they should get called on it, because the other people are like, yeah, I got fucking problems too.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I
so
mean,
it's written really freaking well.
like you said, it's a very grim world because it's not like they're having this grand old time. Although you do see it's kind of a funny backdrop because that scene I was talking about, you just see this long table of just all this food, and you're like, oh yeah, nice to be king type situation.
Yeah.
But I mean, once you're fed, now what? right?
Yeah.
I mean, now you got to deal with yourself and your family
You
and your
still like
situation.
got fucking sores all over your back,
That just
looking
comes from being a
disgusting.
king.
Your fingers falling off. Like he, and it's all because he like keeps cutting himself on the
Yeah,
chair.
that's what it all
It's
is.
like why are you guys sitting in that
Yeah,
chair?
yeah, you
What
don't
are you
have to.
doing?
You don't
Like
have
no
to.
one was like, man, let's get rid of this. I'm the king. I'm gonna
cut-
get rid of this chair. I want a
cover it
nice,
up.
comfy seat. I'm like cutting myself. It's like I'm literally killing myself.
That was a pretty cool motif in the first that they showed in the first episode a couple times. But that's actually something that gets insinuated throughout all of the books and everything. Is
Yeah,
that
it's big on
it's
like
a-
in the chair decides like
it's a
it
mythology.
rejects bad kings, which the series you could look at him and say like he's a bad king in some respects, in other respects he's a good person. I don't know if he's a good king.
Yeah.
I mean he's positioned the realm where he's set the realm up for a freaking civil war, so that's not really the
Yeah.
greatest position to put the realm in, and he probably could have alleviated that by making Daemon his heir until he had a male heir. He probably alleviates this problem that he set up for himself if he does that. The realm would have accepted that. There might have been an issue with Daemon, but I don't know that it would have been, you'd have just like a major fallout with, family against family. It would have been, Daemon's, and Daemon would have been, if he was the heir, he would have had enough time to put himself in a position where he was in control.
Well, there's that. He could have also married Valerian. Is that the Corlys Valerian? Is that
Yeah, he could have married. Well, I mean, I don't know what his choices would have been marriage wise, but he could have positioned himself into where he was set to be powerful and got his people in place in the kingdom, and like all like the hand of the king. He could have eventually became hand of the king and got all his pieces aligned for his transition.
Yeah, he could have a lot less enemies in waiting, right? I mean, that's
Yeah,
kinda,
well, and that was that's another thing where Viserys is part of his problem is like if he's gonna make Rhaenyra the heir, then what he should be doing is aligning the all the what do you call it, the hand of the king and all that group, the King's Council. Yeah, the King's Council. He should have aligned it all with Rhaenyra loyalists. Like he should have been maneuvering everything to just solidify her power, because you have to have it set up where if he dies or he's gone, that she can step in and there's no threat to her. But if you just leave it in this where these two warring sides both have hands in the cookie jar, they're gonna fight.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially if they're on your council, they know more than anybody else what your
So
thoughts are.
he's not all that great of a king. There was ways he could mitigate some of the problems that he has, but he wants to please everybody. He's too much of a people pleaser, and he needs to piss off some people. And
speaking to that,
and then put them in their place,
that's
so
kind-
that they're not a threat.
That's kind of what Damon told him.
Yeah.
He was like, "You make me hand, I wouldn't let this shit happen." That's why I
Yeah.
said you're weak.
Yeah,
If I was, I would protect you.
yeah.
But
Yeah,
then
and
he gets
he's not
personal.
wrong, and Damon's not wrong there, because what Viserys is doing is causing problems. He's still he's a good person. You like his character. You love like the acting's
Kind of
phenomenal.
feel bad
and, like,
for him, you know.
yeah, but part of that is his own. He's flawed. He's a flawed character as well. They're all flawed. Damon's flawed. Damon's a massive hothead. Does a lot of rash things. Takes stupid risks. But he's extremely enjoyable to watch, and it's a massive difference. Like that, and going to Rings of Power, that's the problem that they're having with Galadriel, is that she's not likable. Like, I mean, it's a massive problem. The majority of people are watching and going like, dude, I hate this lady.
That's a really good example.
And
I mean,
they're not making her likable.
comparing how Viserys is likable versus how Daemon's likable in completely different ways,
Yeah.
and shouldn't have any of that. You
No.
know, like,
But like Daemon Targaryen's, like if he would be the most aligned with her, or even Rhaenyra, they're kind of have some similarities in their demeanor, and like Rhaenyra's got kind of a shitty demeanor, but she also's got a lighter side. She's
Yeah,
got
and
some
you see
likability.
it.
She
You see it
smiles.
quite
She
a bit,
jokes
yeah.
with people. She's flirtatious with people and those kind of things. She's just a much better formed character.
dude, and it doesn't take much. We don't get much to see her be light, but we get enough to know that she is like she's fully well rounded.
Yeah.
That's one definite thing about Galadriel that we don't get. She's not rounded at all.
No.
She's just one pissed off. I don't know, like a pissed off woman that's just sticking in the same line
and doesn't
of
make any
whatever
sense
this
because at least
quest
Rhaenyra,
is.
at least like Rhaenyra, you can excuse some of her bad qualities with her youth. I mean, she's young, and then but all of the people in the story for House of Dragon, they're all super young compared to Galadriel. I mean, she's thousands of years old.
Yeah, you think she'd
She's
be
an
a little more
immortal,
level-headed,
immortal being. Like she's lived for well over 1,000 years, and there's no reason for her to be this like petulant child. It doesn't make any sense. Like I've seen them excuse it on. Well, it's an arc. What happened to the first half? The first 1,000+ years of her life. Did she have no arc? Like this shouldn't be like the starting point for her, and like, oh well, we're building from here. It's like she's been this miserable for over 1,000 years. No one would like her. She would be completely hated by everybody.
Yeah, remember the first episode? She made that paper boat.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that was her arc.
yeah. They sunk her boat, and she's never recovered. She's
by the
been
way,
an asshole ever since.
And if she's so mad and she's so angry and so like just filled with rage, wouldn't she just stay on the boat?
Like
You know what I
they
mean?
could easily soften her up by having her relationship with Elrond and him being like having conversations with her. It's like, look, I know you're struggling, like, but this is not you. You're not this person. And like show like this isn't who
What's
she
happened
is.
to
She's
you?
really
You've
struggling.
changed, yeah.
But they're not even like going through it. Like they're just treating it like this is how she is.
Yeah.
But I think they think that like she's just badass. Like, oh, she's the fucking shit. Look at her warrior queen. And it's like she's not. You're not writing that character. I don't. You might think that's the kind of character you're writing, but she's not badass.
That's not what's being portrayed.
No.
On the show.
No, and you can't you can't just be like, oh, well, all the people who don't like her are misogynists. Like, what the get the fuck out of here! I can go and talk about women characters and all the ones I love all day fucking long.
I love the idea that like, well, you're just misreading it. It's like you put this out.
Yeah,
that's on you. That's not on me. I mean, it would be if it's a different context. I'm watching other shows where the female characters are endearing.
Yeah,
they have qualities.
Like every single one about like on House of Dragons we're talking about.
Well, that's a well-made show, well written, well produced, well directed, and all of it. Versus a show that seems like it's not hitting.
No, there's going to be massive problems with over Rings of Power. People are going to get fired because there's no way their ratings are holding up.
Well,
like the viewership, it has to be. They would be trumping it from the top of the rooftops if the viewership for episode 3 and 4 were really good. They'd be talking about it, and they're all they've given is that first episode, and they said 25 million sampled it, whatever that means, and radio silence. But then also you get other indicators where you have more concrete data, like from Samba, Samba tracks all their users, which isn't all users, but it's a significant portion of them, and of all their users, 4.8 million people in the U.S. watched the first episode of House of the Dragon. 1.8 watched the first episode of Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. And then 1.3 of those continued on and watched the second episode. And that was in the first 4 days for those. And so 4.8 versus 1.8, there's no fucking way that 25 million people watched Amazon, watch Rings of Power. I bet it's a significant number. 10 million wouldn't surprise me. 15 million wouldn't shock me. But 25 million on the first day, no fucking way. No way 25 million people watched that.
Well, that's what they said, sample.
And if it was, if there were still, 10 million, 15 million people, if it was beating House of the Dragon, they'd be talking about that. Because House of the Dragon is continuing to put out their numbers, and they would be doing the same.
They would be bragging.
Just to show that they're doing better, but they're not. And they're still hiding reviews, they're trimming reviews, they're doing those kind of things to drown out the negative feedback, because people were talking about the ratings on Rotten Tomatoes. Oh, they're getting review bombed, but so it's just all these angry trolls, and it's like we're now getting into the fourth episode, so it's the third week. It's like the reviews have slowly trickled down. There's not a ton of new reviews coming in, and there's over 25,000. It's still at 39%, and it was at 38% after 2,000 reviews. So it's been consistently low, and that's not to say that the show is as bad as like all shows that are at 38. That shows that there is significant dislike of the show within their fandom. Because if they legit had 25 million people watch the show and the majority loved it, they could drown out, 10, 20,000 reviews. No problem. They would drown those out with tens. Because people would look at that and they would see, oh man, my favorite show's getting shat on. I'm going to write a review. That's human nature. But the fact that there's not, the rescue's not coming, shows you how weak the reception is. And you cannot just. And part of it is they antagonize the fan base with this, putting out statements, talking about racism, and we got a major problem of racism in the fandom. It's just stupid. You're just antagonizing and making things divisive and solidifying the hatred against you. You're not going to be able to recover from that now.
That's a massive turnoff. The only reason why that alone would get me to be like, I'm not going to watch the show.
That's like, when like an athlete, loses a game and then starts blaming everybody else but himself for the loss. It's even if there was even a grain of truth to what you were saying, it turns people off. No one likes a poor loser.
Yeah. And especially you're on a team. If it's a team sport, you just blame your teammates.
Yeah.
How's that going to go?
No.
What the hell's wrong with
you?
Or
the fans. Even worse.
Yeah, that's way worse. And that's clearly the colossal mistake that they made here. Which, for me, a show like that, if I even got waves of that, I'd be like, yeah, I'm just not going to watch it for that reason, because, fuck them. But I was intrigued to watch it just to see what the train wreck, right? And, we talked about it, I think, last time, maybe it was on the podcast, but, it looks amazing, and a lot of the music is good. All the production qualities are great on that level, editing and that type of stuff. But man, it's not hitting on story. The dialogue is weird. A lot of times it doesn't fit contextually. The characters are just not likable. The weird thing is, the one part of the show that has quality that draws me in the most is the weirdest and the least sensible, which is the fucking Harfoot shit.
Yeah.
Is so out of left field. Not the same show, the type of thing I could watch with my kids until this last episode, and it got really dark for them.
But yeah, they were. I didn't watch the third episode, but I saw the reviews on it, and I watched some of those guys because people shitting on it are funny. And but they were talking about the Harfoots just leave people behind, and it's like, if you're a nomadic tribe, you can't just sacrifice resources like that.
It's not just that they leave them behind. So part of the episode is they do this whole thing where they go around and talk about people they've left behind. And they honor them. They honor them, which is real fucked up, because it's different. You honor someone that died in battle. You're honoring people that had a twisted ankle, and you're like, fuck you, bro. you can't carry a wheel, you're done, bro. That's it.
You can't keep up. So
Yeah.
like how
And they're
how
like,
are
"Oh,
you guys still alive?
Oh, Patty, he was the best. We love, and they tell some story, and they're like, "You guys killed him,
Yeah,
man! Like, what are you
just left
talking
him to
about?"
die, you psychopaths.
It's very strange. It takes a really and I mean, that's such a dark, twisted thing that when you present the idea, like, okay, and as you talk, I'm just picturing being in a writer's room, and then you start to talk the idea, and you're like, wait, so they're glorifying the people they let die?
Yeah.
Well, no, but yeah. But
But
then,
no, it's funny. It's cute.
Yeah,
They're quirky. It's like, what are you talking about? This isn't quirky.
You might as well make
They're
them
psychopaths.
You might as well make them cannibals.
Yeah.
You just be like, yeah, we ate them. Oh, he,
Oh,
was
but he
delicious.
tasted so good. Made the best stew. God.
Oh man.
I don't understand like the thought process. Like the thing that killed me is when they were talking about in the third episode, and they mentioned the scene where Gladriel talked about like how if that boat hadn't came by, she was certain to die.
Which she was ungrateful for.
Yeah.
By the way.
Yeah.
Which is really fun. Which is a real twist when you say she was going to die, but she's ungrateful that the boat came.
But then they
Which
just
doesn't make sense.
It annihilates the entire first episode and second
that whole-
episode
yeah.
because it's like, then why the fuck did she jump out of the boat? She jumped out of a boat in the middle of the ocean, and even she knew it was certain death.
Her brother's words.
She couldn't swim. Like to get to where she got, that's not even close to land. She wasn't even close, and she was already like it was certain death. It's like, what the? Why did you jump out of
the
a
whole
boat?
thing,
You had
like-
no like. Is she? It's like she's the dumbest person.
Well,
You
so-
made her the dumbest character.
Dumb or suicidal or ridiculously romantic, which she's not. She doesn't fit that at all. She doesn't act that way at all. Or the argument I was about to jokingly make, her brother's words were so powerful that she murdered herself.
The way
But even just the first episode, I know we talked about this, but jumping out of a boat, knowing you're in the middle of fucking nowhere after they stood in that ridiculous posture, and then when I saw her with the blade again, I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
It's not like, how long is that gonna last? 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 2 hours,
drop
3
that.
hours. Eventually, yeah.
you're just close
eventually
fisting,
yeah.
you're just gonna be like swimming
Yeah,
with one
like
arm.
I gotta keep it. Right, I tuck it in, and
She
then you're
had,
gonna
she was
feel
wearing
it
like
dragging.
a shift. She wasn't. She had nothing to tuck it into. She had like a nightie on.
Yeah, man. It's so like
She you could have went up to Keister with
yeah,
it
it's
and
so- it's so
gone
impractical.
prison life.
it's got to be like a cartoon where it's like, but even if it's a cartoon, it's like, well, where'd the knife go? Oh, it just comes back. Oh, okay.
Keistered it.
Oh, yeah, Keistered it. I think that's also gonna make swimming quite difficult.
Yeah,
I got an anchor in my ass.
a giant freaking knife up my ass. But like if you're gonna have her given that speech, she cannot say like it was certain death. She should have been defiant that I would have made it. I would have been fine. I didn't need your help. I could have swam. I could have made it. That has to be her
Which would
mentality.
also-
because if her mentality isn't that, then what she did is dumb from her perspective. It should be dumb. And that it is since she
reckless.
did it, she's a moron.
Is like reckless to the largest sense. And that defense would also make sense for her to be like, well, I wish you didn't take me here. Because she had one of those attitudes with the guy that saved her life, where it's like, I wish you never brought me here. It's like,
It should have been like
you're dead if I don't bring you here. What
if
the fuck
I'm
are you talking
writing that,
about?
if I'm writing that and I'm trying to save it, I'm gonna have them challenging her like, you would have died without me, and how can you be ungrateful? And she's like, she should have been like, I didn't need your help. I intended to swim.
That actually
I
fits.
would have made it. I would have been fine without you. I didn't need your help. You guys are in my way.
That would actually fit
Her character.
her character way better as
Yeah.
well. Instead of like playing this weird, yeah, man. It's she's very unlikable, and it's not necessarily the, and I hasten to even say, well, no, I don't. I mean, it's not her face, although she makes some weird faces. It's not the actress necessarily. It's the ridiculous things they have her saying, the time they have her saying it, the things they have her doing that don't make any sense. And this is what's supposed to hold the whole thing up.
Yeah.
Like this, and then the other things. So if that's weak, okay, then maybe the Harfoots. Then the Harfoots murder their own people. All right, well that's, and they don't even do it purposely, which is like worse, basically. So that's in a way. So then I can't latch on to that as much as I would like. So then what? We got the guy with the fresh fade. Like he's not likable. I haven't seen a quality yet that seems redeeming to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I barely saw him in the first 2 episodes, but
It gets really stupid in the third with the orc battle and like the impractical nature.
The
of what
dwarves were likable. They were okay.
Oh yeah, the dwarf like family. Oh yeah, they're with what's his face, Aragon or whatever.
Elrond.
Elrond.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they're yeah. I mean it's more at least it's like. That's where it gets back to like.
But it's like a different show. I mean,
it becomes like it becomes young adult.
You've just mixed all these different shows together.
It becomes it becomes actually what the original Lord of the Rings appealed to, which was a larger audience.
That's the only part that it has any kind of feel of Lord of the Rings to it is the dwarf.
The
part.
Harfoots do a little bit to me, but the dwarfs especially.
I hated the Harfoot scenes so much. I hate their accents. They sound ridiculous.
Yeah.
they talk ridiculous.
I
their premise is ridiculous. Like
honestly,
they don't feel like hobbits to me, and that's what. Because like you've already established the hobbits probably more than anybody else as far as their culture, and then you're showing this other group of hobbits, and it's like a completely entirely different race, and that's not the case, and like. And as far as lore, they shouldn't even exist in this age. They shouldn't even be there.
I
And
guess,
so they just made them up and then shoved them in there, and they've done a shit job. It's this goofy little kids show when they come on, and it's like it's corny and it's like it's almost like watching like Pee-wee's Playhouse, and it's like and they're like I watch it and I'm like, what is this? Is weird as shit.
I guess the thing about it that I guess that I like is in that world I like the set and the feel of the ambiance of the area, I guess is what I'm trying to like find things to like. I'm really genuinely trying to find things to like about the show. And at least that stuff I could have on with the kids, and it's like, we're kind of watching it and I'm like, man, I don't hate this. That's not a good sign for a show that's supposed to be entertaining.
I mean, there are people I see people there, the Harfoots, a lot of people hate it, and then some people love the Harfoots, but it's not for me.
It is super.
Didn't work for me.
I don't want to say it's super silly, but it's kind of it's pretty ridiculous. But it's somewhat lifelike.
Put it this way:
there's family. There's some orientation of a society that somewhat resembles our own. I guess that's part of the part that's somewhat endearing to me.
If they were in House of the Dragon, I would be ready to like cancel my HBO subscription. I would be like, this is the dumbest fucking thing, and it's like there shouldn't be that big of a gap between Lord of the Rings and House of the Dragon. Like I mean, like if the dwarves were in House of the Dragon, I would be like, this is out of place, and they shouldn't be there. But I wouldn't be like, what the fuck is this? I wouldn't be like, this is like a kids show. You put on a kids show, and that like Lord of the Rings shouldn't feel like a little kids show.
To also have and what it also feels like okay, you could do a season that's set in this world, that is the world of the Lord of the Rings, but you don't mix it in with all this other shit that doesn't really fit.
If you wanted to do a little kids show, do a little kids show. Just do the Harfoots on their own. That's their own
apparently
show.
You had $1 billion budget, so you had enough to do a whole bunch of different shows.
You didn't have to, shove this into this other story. They don't fit at all. And like, how is
it really doesn't.
They're like all. I guess they're all eventually going to converge together, and then it's just going to be weird, and because they're like all on completely different tones. And then you're going to match them all together. Like, I cannot imagine a scene with Galadriel and the Harfoots. It's going to be the most awkward fucking scene ever.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. I mean, they're awkward now is the thing. I mean, they do so many things within the episodes where, again, I'm like trying to like it, and it's like, man, I know you really thought that was going to hit hard. Like, what particularly comes to mind is the orc battle with the guy with the fresh fade. I can't remember his fucking name. I don't know his name. But they like capture all these elves, and suddenly he's in a like it's not a dungeon, but it's like it's a hole. It's like they're like building tunnels or some shit. It's a bunch of orcs, and suddenly you just feel like, oh, okay, this guy's gonna die. Instead, he's like a slave, and it's like slave labor, and they got chains, and they're fucking hammering shit.
Yeah, and saw the still shot, and they got this massive area that they're just cutting a swath through, and it's like, how does no one notice this? Like, how long have they been digging this? Like, this would take forever. Like, nobody noticed this.
Yeah, it seems, and then they have a last stand over a tree. It seems is that's the big coup de grace for the arc of
And
that
the one
show, or
tree that was
episode.
left in the picture is the one directly in front of their path.
Yeah, of
They
course.
cut all the other trees first, but they leave the one that's directly. It's just like, this is stupid.
It's really funny
This show,
too.
like, even a still shot pisses me off. I'm like, this is stupid. This stupid show.
It was pretty weird, and then it was like all of a sudden the characters are like, "This is our last stand. This tree's been here longer than any of us," and the orcs are like,
What about all the other trees you cut down?
every time I see, like, especially when I see these like slave elves all in chains, suddenly, indignant towards these orcs, which aren't fucking human. Like they're like beasts. Like, what are you even doing? What, like, unless you're gonna like kill them all,
Yeah.
there's no sense in having a conversation. All of a sudden they're gonna be like, you know what, you guys are right. Take a break. Everybody can bring some water. Like, what is this? Like, what's happening all of a sudden? It's fucking ridiculous. And then yeah, so he does this. I don't know. They like whip him with their chains. That's what came to mind. And then he like flips in the air and then like stabs somebody or something. And it was one of those moments that you could tell it's like, oh, they think this is gonna be like in the trailer, and everyone's gonna be like, oh man, that was so badass. And it's unfortunately it's one of those things that in the moment it happens, that's exactly what I'm feeling. Is guys were watching this that made the show like, people are gonna think this is so badass, and I'm thinking they're thinking that,
Yeah,
thinking
yeah,
it's not that.
Yeah.
That's not what's supposed to happen.
That's the problem is it's a show you just can't sit back and sink into because you're constantly questioning why they did everything they did, and it's just like, dude, I can't. Your tone's all over the place. I'm constantly questioning your decisions, the dialogue. Like they'll say one thing, and then the response it's like it's a response to an entirely different question.
Yeah.
Where it's like, are you guys not in the same room when you're writing the dialogue? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like some of the things they say.
I can imagine though some people that defend the show or made the show would be hearing what we're saying and thinking, oh, they already had all these. They were already on sensitive and defensive before the show.
That's how I started with House of the Dragon, even more so because this was a House of the Dragon. I'm much more protective of that property. I don't fucking. If this show was good, I would have said this show is good. I like it. I don't give a shit what anyone thinks. I watched the latest Matrix movie, which got shat on, and I was like, I liked what they tried. I thought it was interesting, and in the direction they went. I don't think they hit on everything. There's definitely some problems with that movie, and it felt awkward on parts. But I wasn't like joining the crowd and being like, hey, when everybody else is shitting on something, I'm gonna shit on it. I watch all kinds of shit shows.
It doesn't matter, dude. It doesn't matter what it is. I'm going in judging the fuck out of it because that's what we all should be doing when we watch anything. The second I see a show, unless it already has a quality, if it's like Coen Brothers or Tarantino, I'm gonna go see it no matter what because I like their shit.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna see it. I'd rather know nothing, be surprised. But a lot of other shit, if I don't know anything about it and I see something, sometimes they'll have the playbill or whatever that they did a good sales job on. I'm like, all right, that, like, I remember seeing an episode, this is totally different, but seeing a commercial for the show Atlanta and just the way they presented it, I'm like, I'll check this shit out. And I ended up liking it. But so if that happens and I get sold just on that, I'll watch it. I'm still judging it every fucking second until if there's characters that are likable and nothing jumps out to distract me and I can actually, like you said, I think that's a good way to put it, sink into the show and be like in that world, then what is there to be mad about? But I tried to go in liking this mainly because there was a lot of qualms or a lot of complaints about like why not to like it, which makes me almost defend whatever someone's telling me that I'm going to think the opposite. just because the way I am. I'm going to go in thinking I'm not going to think what they're thinking, mainly because I don't know. This is the way I'm wired. If somebody tells me I'm going to do one thing, then I'll push for the other.
Yeah, and mine would have been, it was the antagonism and again, just like there's so many studios and these corporations attacking the fans, where I was going in with the attitude is like it doesn't, and the trailers didn't look good to me. And so I was looking at the trailers and I'm like, oh man, this doesn't look good. And then they're attacking, talking shit, and
the choice of self-defense tactics is really, really bad.
Just they were laying the ground where it was like, you knew 100% that if the show wasn't well received, they were going to call people racist. You just knew it.
They kind of expected that it was
and
going
they
to
laid that groundwork from the beginning, and so you knew it. And it's such a divisive fucking thing, and it annoys the shit out of me because you're just splitting fan bases, and then you're making it impossible to critique your show without people thinking, a bunch of people thinking you're a terrible racist scumbag because you don't like their show, and the only reason you don't like their show is because you're one of the bad people. And it's like, it's stupid. You can't, because the way I analyze this show, the way I talked about those first 2 episodes, it's the same way I talk about the King Killer Chronicles, and the same way I analyze it. I critique it, and I pick things apart, and I say, like with the ADEM, I'm like, why would Kay Surratt be fighting this person? That doesn't make a lot of sense. But the story's great. And so but I still critique it, and I still pull things apart, and I look for holes. It's just, if I'm watching a show and it's like, that's a plot hole, that doesn't make any sense, that dialogue's stupid. Like I'm always, that's the same way I review anything. If
anybody listens
it sucks.
If anyone listens to our podcast, we love the books.
Yeah,
but there's been plot holes that we want to hear from Rothfuss about. But then also, especially the last 2 episodes, there are more than typical, which was interesting because we are analyzing it. So if you're going to look at it closely, it's like, oh, well, this, and this. First couple times through, it's not enough for me to be like, well, that's all fucked up, and I'm putting the book down, right?
No.
There's so much. I didn't watch episode 4. I think it came out today for Rings of Power. I'm not real excited about it because I've been trying to like it. That last one, it was hard for me to actually get fully through it. Like,
you didn't like the pony ride?
Oh man, that was so funny. So we've been talking. All right, that's really funny. So we've been talking about Galadriel. She could at least soften her a little bit, right? And they went way too far, as far as I'm concerned. And it's funny because I'm kind of like sensitive to it because she's so unlikable and she's the linchpin of the show. And then I think that there's something along the dialogue of she starts to like this guy. And they go, I think I text you. I like the set design where they go into this room. There's scrolls everywhere. And you can tell they spent a big budget on it. It's fucking cool looking. And they found some scroll. That part was was way too on the nose. And was kind of like...
She's had this map for like hundreds or 1,000 years, and she hasn't thought to turn it sideways.
Yeah.
Oh shit!
Yeah. It was. Well, she just saw.
She's been looking at maps. She's been traveling around the fucking world.
But she just saw this. Yeah. So now it's kind of like what's the with the vase that's 2 faces. Once you see it, you'll never.
And then why is Sauron? Like, he's got this...
Is he leaving?
Why is he scrolling it on the people he kills?
He can't help himself.
You'll never figure it out. I'm a trickster.
He's the wet bandits of evilldom.
So fucking dumb.
But so I don't know. She's starting to like this guy, and he has likable qualities, and he's got kids. That was one of the things where he's like has some back and forth with his kids.
I think he's probably the guy that's like the
He was the guy that had the boat.
Yeah, he's. I don't. I didn't watch it, but he's probably, I would guess, is like the guy in the first Lord of the Rings. You know how they show like the last fight, the men and the elves and everybody join forces against Sauron, and one of the guys, the king, gets killed, and his son picks up the sword and cuts Sauron's hand off. I'm betting that's the dad, and his son is the guy that cuts, and the guy the son would be the one that didn't throw the ring in the fire.
Yeah, I wish I could remember their whole back and forth.
Isildur or something like that.
There was definitely a whole thing with especially the father and the son going back and forth and not agreeing
Probably
on
who it
something
is. It's
that he's
probably
going
who
to
it
do.
is.
But then he says to Galadriel, "Would you like to go on a pony ride?" And
like ponies.
She
I love ponies.
you guys saw this glimmer in her eye, and then the next shot is, oh my god, it's so funny. Her face is so spastically cartoonish, of just this ridiculous, ridiculous.
I saw the slow mos, like the slow mo of the horses with her shitting eating grin, and I'm like, who the fuck thought this looked fucking good?
Dude, just do some more takes. I
Yeah.
mean, when they show, like, I mean, cinematically, it looks pretty beautiful in terms
Just
of the
don't
horse's
slow
hair
it. Don't
and-
slow it down. It looks corny as fuck.
Dude, just do
Slowed it
another
down.
take. Just do. All right, another face. Just bring it. What was I talking about?
They might as well have done like the '80s Rocky Balboa and that dude running like high five each other on the beach.
It had a little bit of a feel like that. It was way over the top.
Slow it down. Start playing. Take it to the limit.
Yeah. It was definitely over the top. I mean, it was one of those things where it's like, wait, what? It reminded me of a Seinfeld episode where Kramer's taking a picture of Kruger, George's boss. George had a picture that he took off his desk, all this shit, and he like asked him to smile, and he like smiled. He's like, no, not that much. Like, bring it back. They should have done that with Galadriel. Just do a couple more takes, man. Just bring that smile in a little bit. Which I get what they're doing. She's always so hard. But when she's on her horse, when she gets to connect with nature, or whatever the fuck they're trying to do, suddenly we get a picture of her being. So this is what she's going to do, Dan. She's going to open up. She's going to show the lovely, sinuous, whatever fucking word you want to pick, Galadriel that's within, right? That's so lovable. It's just her on a horsey.
Oh man,
it was really that was another part. I mean, there's so many, and there's only been 3 episodes, and there's so many things that are just like, man, that's hard. That's really difficult. And I don't know, man. I really don't like nitpick stuff very often. There are certain things where it's like I could say this would be a little bit better, that would be a little bit better, but man, it's so.
I'll nitpick things, but that won't affect my overall feeling of the show unless I'm just like, there's so many. I'm picking so many nits that I'm like,
yes.
it's too much. It's just
I'll
too
say,
much. I have too many problems with it.
While I'm watching something,
I have problems
something,
with virtually everything. Nothing's perfect.
I'm saying while I'm watching something, reading something, I'm constantly nitpicking, especially on first listen, first watch. I'm constantly doing that of everything. I think everybody does that to some degree. And you just and you can let it all roll over you, but I mean, there are certain things that are gonna jump out at you, and there's so many things that jump out to such a big degree where it's like, man, like it's $1 billion fucking show, man. It's $1 billion show. They shouldn't have them standing like they were in that first episode twice. They shouldn't have her jumping off the boat. They should have redone the fucking quote from the opening of the show. I mean, the list goes on and on of things that definitely should have been keyed in on and edited. Before they shot the shit, frankly, a lot of the dialogue stuff should have never made it to fucking rehearsal.
I just don't know how they had that many people watch that show. Because they had to have had it watched by a lot of people and tested it out. And nobody was like, you got a fucking major Galadriel problem.
I think they did. I think they tested it. They knew it wasn't going to do well, and they put out this whole argument about racism.
Yeah, but why wouldn't you change it? Like you had,
I don't know. I think maybe they thought we sunk too much money
as it was being acted.
I don't know, man. For some reason, on the execution of the show, showrunners, whatever it is, shit the bed, and they fucking put out all this money, and somewhere along the line, it was. All right, well, we're just going to put it out. Let's try the best we can to control the reaction of people looking at our art, at this thing we produced, this thing we made that we're going to, like, I mean, it's not like they just let it out. I mean, it
shows you the importance of a showrunner on a TV show.
Well,
like on a movie, the director's the most important figure. Yeah. On a TV show, it's the showrunners. they're the ones that can keep everybody in line because the directors are largely just following a script and they're just doing what they're told to do, and they have some leeway, but it's not like you can tell very little difference between what director directed each episode of Game of Thrones. I mean, it just all looks like Game of Thrones or House of Dragons,
it's very cohesive.
but that's because of the showrunners, the big figure on it, and so like they can tighten things up. They can make sure the directors are giving the actors the right advice. They can monitor the writing, make sure the writing's up to par, give it back to them, give notes on it, fix this. They can showrunners have it can guide people and make sure they're basically their job would be to get the best out of everybody else, to have a vision and then get the best out of everybody and make it happen. And they clearly don't have that with this show. I don't even know. It's impossible to judge whether it's they don't have good enough writers, they don't have good enough directors, good enough actors. It was impossible to decide those things. They probably are all fine at their job. It's just they need someone guiding them and pushing them and making sure that they're getting the best product out of them and has a vision, because these people clearly don't know what the hell they're doing.
I think you probably hit it on the head. If there was a showrunner that has the idea of the feel of what they're trying to put out, there would never be. You would never see a Game of Thrones character smiling like that.
No,
That shot, and I get that's a completely different show.
Ned
pretty
Stark.
much a different genre.
Horsey!
I mean, it's a completely different show, different genre, and all that. But
They
just
should do that though. Have Ned Stark recut it and just have him doing that.
The feeling of that moment is like this does not. It doesn't belong. It doesn't. I don't know what show that belongs on. Frankly, I don't know if it does.
Yeah.
At all.
That's who they should have looked at. Is like if they wanted to portray Galadriel in the light that they're portraying her is, they should have looked at how Ned Stark was done, because he is a grim, serious dude, but he's extremely likable.
Yeah.
And part of the way they soften him up is with Caitlyn and with his kids. And what they should have did with Galadriel
Baratheon.
is she's married, and they should have had her husband involved in the story, and that could have helped soften her up and to give her a close confidant, someone that she can let her guard down with and lighten up. And for whatever reason, they wrote him out of the show, and that it's they don't have any way to. They're not competent enough to soften her up without doing something different.
I can understand why. I can understand a motivating factor for not having her be married, even though the character was.
I think they wanted to do the just her shining by herself without a man, and
I understand.
And then
That's
also
the
they
motivating
wanted
factor.
to ship her and Halbrand, and so they didn't want her husband getting in the way of their made up shit that they wanted to tell. They just didn't. They don't give a fuck about
It's not
the
working.
Lord of the Rings other than the name.
It's not working. Is the thing.
No.
like they took all this creative license. You better fucking nail it.
Yeah.
And they didn't. They're not nailing it at all. It's not fucking working. Again, I mean, there's certain things that are great. That's what you were saying a moment ago. It's like set design's great, sounds great, editing's great, look is great. The fucking like so many things are pretty amazing. I would say even like the storyboard of certain things worked.
And the problem is you can't fix it now. Like you would have to
it's
just
over.
scrap it
Because
no one. If you get through this first season and the first season is not good, no one's going to go into the second season knowing they got to slog through shit to get to a good second season. Yeah. You just neutered your audience. For as big of an audience as they need to justify the money they're spending, there's no way they're recovering.
You're basically starting over with a mea culpa, and you better just scrap it and do a different story. What came to mind? I don't remember how old I was.
And they're not going to scrap it. They're going
you remember,
forge ahead and just cut budgets.
You remember the Will Smith movie Wild West?
Yeah.
Because I remember when that
Yeah,
was coming
sort of.
out. I remember when that was coming out. It was like the most promoted movie up to that point in my life. Where I was like, why is like this is everywhere? It was like McDonald's, Taco Bell. It was like everyone's promoting this movie. I was like, this must be like really good. I was very young, and then that was like a life lesson. It was like, oh, they promoted the shit out of this, and it's garbage, and they just wanted to get as many people coming to begin with to see it and cash in as much as they can. I guess that was the move back then, and it seems like Lord of the Rings started to do that. They at some point, I think someone had to realize through the testing or something, there had to have been a sign. There had to have been test groups that were like, dude, it's not working. This is not very good, whatever the reactions were. And instead of deciding, let's retool things, they were like, well, let's just control the narrative. And then they made it all about something that's nothing to do with the show. Or they made it all about like race. No, I don't give a shit what color of skin or who their actors are portraying the characters. You chose to make her not married. Okay, well, it's not working.
Yeah,
I don't know
like,
if it would have
even-
if she was married or not.
You know,
but-
yeah. If you were asking me like my preference, I'd be like, just make the characters what they are in the source material.
It's always better from the source
and just
material.
stick to it.
It's
And,
always.
and not only the reasons I would say to do that is one is you'll cut off any kind of bullshit about people who are super fans and they want everything stuck to precisely that. You eliminate that complaint. If you can find an actor that semi fits the role and who can act, do that. So that would be my preference. But if you start doing the race swaps and you're doing it for specifically to add diversity to the show, you're going to send up huge red flags, because then people are going to be like, man, are you guys more focused about checking boxes and pushing like a social agenda, or are you guys focused on putting out a good story? Because if I was even if I was like, I'm checking boxes, I wouldn't tell people that. I wouldn't talk about diversity. I would say the reason we cast this person for this role is they were the best in the audition. We understand that it's not exactly the way it's in the books, and we understand it's going to upset some fans who want us to be consistent, but just give it a chance. I think once you see the person in the role, you'll understand why we went this route. They're really good. That's how I would sell it to the fans. I would not sell it in this way where you are inserting yourself into a culture war and you're being like, we're fixing Tolkien and we're, this is a necessary redress and he didn't have enough people of color in his stories, and now people, who are different colors can relate to the book. It's like, man, this book sells all over the fucking world.
Yeah.
All around the world, man. It is already resonates with people because people resonate with the characters, not the color of their skin.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
People don't-
the character I resonate the most with in King Killer Chronicles is Will. He's the one that I think his personality fits mine the most. He's a black kid. Like, I don't resonate with any of the white people. Like, their personalities are not like mine at all. Like, Kavoth has, is his confidence I resonate with, but outside of that, he's nothing like me.
Yeah.
But I enjoy reading about him, and he's nothing like me. I enjoy reading about the girls; they're nothing like me. It doesn't matter.
It's not something I think about. My favorite novels, they're like Japanese kids, or Japanese adults or kids. They're not like me. They don't have a lot of qualities like me. There will be a couple things, just experience-wise, of being a human being that can be similar on like a psychological level. But that's what I enjoy about the book. I enjoy doing the psychological trip. It's not I'm walking through in his skin.
It's like in Hunger Games. I love those books, and I resonate. I like Katniss's character the most in those books. She's by far my favorite character of those books. And it's none of the guys. Mm-hmm. It's like none of that shit matters to me, and that's most people. And so there's no reason to insert yourself in the culture shit. That's just going to be divisive. It's going to turn people off, start arguments. There's just no reason. There's no benefit to it.
One of the best examples of reason to stick to source material and the effectiveness of that is Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I mean, but even like they divert from it, and like Corlys Valerian, he's a black guy, he's white, and but he's good. I mean, so like you're not seeing House of the Dragon getting shat on by racists and that review bombing. It's because he's good, and all that shit washes away if the person's good. So if the person's good it's not going to be an issue. So when you're selling it, you don't need to make it an issue. You can just say, we hired the best person for the job. Just give it a chance. We think you're going to like it. Leave it at that. And then if the person's good, no one's going to fucking complain. There will still be some, but it will be a minority. I mean, people, you're gonna piss off people if you make the slightest change from the book. There's just some people that any little change is gonna piss them off.
The number one thing, I mean, rule of anything, you're not going to please everybody, regardless of what you do. The way to keep the largest audience, if you're adapting a book, is be
Stick
as close as you possibly
yeah.
can. I don't really care about the optics, but the reason why I brought up Game of Thrones season 1, which I didn't even think about it if it's a bunch of white characters, but what I was thinking about is it sticks as close to a book that's been adapted to something that I can think of.
Yeah.
It's so close to the book, and frankly, and it's one of the very few things
A lot of the
where
dialogue, everything.
yeah, it's one of the very few things where I watched that season before I even read the books. It got me to read the books, which that doesn't usually happen. Doesn't usually happen for me. Usually it's a reverse.
When you're
order.
doing an adaptation, one of the benefits you have is you have a built-in fan base
Yeah,
that
exactly.
will go out
Yeah.
and sell your show for you.
Yeah.
So if the worst thing you can do is to alienate the hardcore fans, because you will turn them into from a sales machine in your favor into the opposite. People convincing people not to watch your show.
Well, just don't go out of your way to give the fans of the books a reason to not like it.
Yeah.
Give them as many reasons as you can to like it. You're not going to be able to please everybody.
If you are going to make changes and stuff, like
Make
there
sense
is
of
a way, even if they're not sensible, you're still selling a product. You still have to have some salesmanship. Like you still have to. You cannot fucking
shit on
just
your fans.
piss in their face and like, yeah, fuck it, suck it, you racist scumbags. Like, what the fuck are you doing, man? Like, you would get fired at any sales company. Anybody who's
Yeah.
got to move product, you're fucking gone. You talking shit to your customers.
Yeah.
You cannot do that. And they're doing it with billion-dollar products. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you people, man?
it's insane.
Get your head screwed on straight. Why are you sabotaging yourself?
Yeah, it's it's a sign
it's
of just
unbelievable.
how insane we've gotten to, and just the world as a whole. Yeah, I mean, culture just itself it's insane to think like. Well, I mean, I guess who's running a show?
Who
right?
picks fight with their customers? Like, I don't like. There's so much money on the line. Like, all you have to do, you don't have to agree with your customers. You don't have to like your customers. Just don't pick fights with them. And if they're chiming in on the internet, well, guess what? Every single person on the internet that has any sizable following has people who talk shit to them. Every single one. There's nobody you go on to anybody's page. If they have a sizable following, there's someone telling them to fuck off on every single post that they have. There's people antagonizing them. There's people who hate them. I don't believe that they actually give a shit about that they're getting negative messages. I don't think that they care. They're using this as a shield. They go and they call people, they say, we stand against racism. And the reason they do that is because most people are good people. And so you're going to be hesitant to criticize their show because you don't want to be labeled a bad person. You don't want people calling you nasty names. I don't have that problem because if someone calls me a racist, I'm not. And I'm not going to value your opinion of me if you're calling me names. I'm going to think you're a dick. Go fuck yourself. That's going to be my position on it. If you start talking shit to me, you're not going to change my opinion of myself.
Wait,
so it's
am I?
not, yeah, like so.
Wait, hold on. I just didn't like this show. Am I a racist?
Yeah, it doesn't affect me, but it does silence a lot of people because they don't want to get involved in it. Even if they're not bothered by your opinion, it doesn't affect them. They don't want to mess with it. They want like Reva, and sometimes I don't even get into it because like when Obi-Wan came out, I watched the first 2 episodes and I was like, man, I don't like that Reva character. She's not doing it for me. And then Star Wars came out and started talking about like, oh, the racist backlash against Reva, and it's like, It's like, Jesus Christ, man. I was like, now if I speak out and I say I don't like this person's acting or this person's role, and they wasn't even a problem with their acting. I just thought it was a terribly written character, and I thought the filming, the directing and filming was shit. I don't know. She could be amazing for all I know as an actor. I have no idea, but I did not like that character and had nothing to do with her race. And it was like, but now if I criticize her, there's going to be people who are going to immediately come back at me. You're a racist. And it's like, that's why they do it, is because it makes it harder to criticize their show. It adds a cost to criticizing their show. But then it also has the added effect of people are just like, man, screw this. I'm done. I'm just done with you guys. And it sabotages your future. Any short-term benefit you get from it is going to have a long-term drastic consequence.
You know Hayden Christensen?
Yeah.
Was that the guy that played Darth
Yeah.
Vader? He's horrible in Star Wars.
Yeah.
I saw him in another movie where he's not only very good, he's like phenomenal.
Yeah.
But the first thing I saw him in was Star Wars, and I thought they so shit the bed casting him, which convinces me it's obviously, again, it's not just like the writing was bad, the directing was bad. They used a lot of things from that movie that are just, they're memeable. I mean, it's so knowingly bad.
Yeah.
Like so many scenes from it. So yeah, I mean, I wonder about that, because it's really funny to then make it about. Well, I mean, I guess that's what's going to happen if you're going to push this agenda where it's like, we need more characters in these roles, and then you write a shitty fucking screenplay and you have terrible scenes that should have been reshot, and that's what you put out, and then people don't like it. Then you get to say, well, then you're a racist, even though our movie sucks. But we have all the right people, man.
Yeah.
On the optics, it looks right. You're supposed to love it, you fucking racist.
Yeah. It's
You're a
it's
scumbag,
cynical.
dude.
And it's like,
Love our movie.
And especially when it's coming from people who, it's like,
Very funny to be that
Wars-
defensive in such an industry, man.
Star Wars and Amazon of all companies, it's like, come on, man. Like, you guys would fucking step over every race possible for $1. I was like, I mean, you guys, like, these are the same people that were like covering Black Panther's face in China and and taking John Boyega and making him like a little tiny picture in the poster in China because they didn't want a big blown up black guy on the poster. It's like, you guys are bending over for racists. Like, you guys are all about the fucking money, and there's nothing wrong with that. Be about the money. I don't give a shit. It's just like, but don't use this shit as a weapon against your fucking fan bases, you cynical bastards.
Well, put out a quality product, and then everyone will like it. No one's gonna shit on good. I mean, well, you'll never please everybody, but as long as it's still quality, then no one's getting defensive.
No. No, that's why there's no war being fought over House of Dragons and Corlys Velaryon. And it's because the show's good, and then the show's good, so they're not attacking the fans.
You know what's funny though? I mean, I'm only gonna say because you brought it up twice. It is a bit distracting that there's white dreadlocks on.
Yeah,
the dark dude. It's a little weird.
The wigs are the worst part of the show. Like,
it really is. They stand out. Where you're like,
I can get like it's one. It's one point in the show. It's a nitpick, and it's one nitpick, and that's not that big of a deal to me. Like, I think the actor's good, and I think like the kid, he seemed fine. We haven't seen enough of them to fully have fully formed opinion, but they all seem good to me.
So
they don't bother me. They don't distract me though.
When he's been on the council, he's great. He's great in the scenes. He fucking,
and it's not so much his hairdo; it's the one on the little girl, and she'll age up, so like maybe it won't look. But the one on the little girl was like, dude, that is the most ridiculous. It
stands out. So I didn't watch Wheel of Time, but isn't there like a character? I think you sent to me. There's a character who's looks super fucking weird. Like, they went really far with how weird. Oh no, is it Dune? Maybe it's Dune.
Oh yeah. He's the big ogre dude. I'm drawing a blank on his name, but yeah, he just had this super weird hairdo.
I mean, because sometimes sometimes you do that, so you have all this completely different looks, and then when you do it and it doesn't it's so stands out so alarmingly much that the scene isn't like the same color
Yeah.
anymore. You know, the same
Well, it's kind of
tone
like
anymore.
when they do in Hunger Games with the weird all the weird looks in the city, but that's
Yeah.
supposed to be weird.
Yeah, yeah, it's
But it's
supposed
like
to.
doing
Yeah.
that and then putting it in a scene where it's not supposed to be weird,
Yes,
and then
yeah.
it stands out.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, it's when it distract. The last thing I want to have
Can be
happen.
distracting. Yeah.
Well, the last thing I want to have happen when I'm 30 minutes into a show is like to realize I'm on my couch and I'm in this room.
Yeah.
I want to be in the fucking show, man.
Yeah.
Like, and that's my like one critique I've had of one of my favorite directors, writers, whatever. For a while was Tarantino, but he's done that a number of times with movies where I'm like, dude, I just got taken out of what's happening right now. Like, you know, which was interesting because it's mixtures of things I really like, but putting them in a certain context, it just jars you out. I don't want to be
Tarantino's
jarred
got
out.
some movies that a lot of movies that I really like, and then he's got a few that I'm like, I hate this thing, like the Crazy Eight or the whatever
The Hateful
Eight,
Eight,
the
yeah.
Hateful Eight. Like, oh my god, I hate that movie.
There, are that's an interesting mix because a couple of his movies, like I can't watch the whole thing again, but there are certain scenes where I really, really like
Yeah,
with
he's a phenomenal
with
director.
Django.
It's just some of his movies I hate.
As an entire experience, there are parts of Hateful Eight that like I'm loving the experience in the movie, watching it. Like I'm really amped up. Kill Bill just fucking was over the top great for me with both movies. With Hateful Eight, I had that, and then like the whole thing with Samuel L. Jackson's like speech, which is just way too much to Bruce Dern, where he just keeps going and going and like torturing his son. I as it's happening, I'm like, I'm definitely never watching this part again. It's just too. It's like so over the top. And there's other parts in the movie, but then there's other parts that are like, I would like to watch this again many times. Like Inglourious Bastards has it. You know, a lot of them have those parts where it's like, yeah, I don't need to see this again. But there's that shock value, you know, Pulp Fiction with Marcellus Wallace getting it. You know, it's the shock value
Bring out
that
the
like
gimp.
everybody talked about for a long time, and that was one of my favorite my favorite movie for the longest time.
Oh man, Pulp Fiction's so good.
Yeah, but so yeah, there's those little elements of things that you mix in, but then there's those things that make it like you may like you said, you might never watch it again. Which there are parts that I liked so much, and then were just like revolting, where it's like, yeah, I don't need this.
But let's wrap it up there because we are going to do another podcast, and so I want to be able to stop for a minute before we get on there. But we're gonna do another person's podcast. I'll post up on that. I'll post something on that on Twitter, so I'll let you guys know what we're doing. But file what was the name of it? Why did I just draw a blank on the name of his podcast? File Fantasies. Fantasy Files. God, yeah. I was like, why does it sound wrong? Fantasy Files podcast. We're doing that, so we're gonna join him in about an hour. So we're gonna get off here, and then I'll just post this online, and we'll be back. We'll do another live stream in about a month, and then for the podcast, we'll have another episode. We got to get one recorded, but then as soon as we get another one recorded, I'll get that posted up as well. But all right. We will see you guys later. Peace out.
Yep.